When the message arrived that Thursday night, my heart stopped for a second. It was Sarah, my daughter, after more than a year of absolute silence. "Mom, are we doing dinner on Tuesday? I miss you." I read those words over and over, my hands trembling, unable to believe it. How could a little text light up all the darkness that had settled in my life since she decided I no longer deserved her love? But when I arrived at her house, something unexpected happened. But before I continue, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Kathy. I am 58 years old, and exactly 1 year ago, my only daughter decided to exclude me from her life. There was no big fight, no definitive moment I can point to as the beginning of the end. It was a gradual, silent drifting away, until one day calls stopped being answered and messages were left unread. The pain of losing a child who is still alive is something I cannot explain. It is as if a part of you is still breathing and smiling somewhere else, but no longer recognizes you. I spent nights trying to figure out what I did wrong, searching my memories for the exact moment I lost her affection. Was it after her husband, Robert, entered our lives? Was it when I questioned some financial decisions they were making? Or maybe it was that Sunday brunch in New York City when I mentioned I thought she was losing too much weight, looking sick, and Robert answered for her that I should take care of my own health. Now, with the message illuminating my phone screen, I felt like someone who was lost in the desert and suddenly sighted water, desperate, thirsty, not questioning if it could be a mirage. The days until Tuesday dragged on like never before. I changed my clothes 5 times before leaving. I put on the green dress she had given me on the last birthday when we were still close. I put on makeup trying to hide the marks that loneliness had left on my face. I took the car and drove to the gated community where they lived, the house I helped buy when I was still welcome. I parked in front of the gate at 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the agreed-upon time. I did not want to be late and give her any reason to regret the invitation. The front yard was different, more sober, with fewer flowers. I remembered when we planted the blue hydrangeas together, which were now gone. I took a deep breath, fixed my hair in the rear-view mirror, and opened the car door. That is when something strange happened. As I walked toward the door, I saw Martha, the housekeeper who had worked for Sarah for years, running toward me. Her face was contorted in an expression that mixed fear and urgency. She looked behind her several times, as if checking she was not being watched, before approaching my car. "Mrs. Kathy," she whispered, her voice trembling, "do not go in there. Please leave as fast as possible." I was paralyzed, not understanding. "What is going on, Martha? Is Sarah okay?" "It is not about her," Martha answered, eyes wide. "It is about you. Please trust me. It is not safe." Before I could ask more questions, she looked toward the house again and backed away. "I need to get back before they notice. Go, Mrs. Kathy, go." And with that, she ran back toward the house, leaving me frozen on the sidewalk, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. What was going on? Why did Martha seem so terrified? And why had my daughter, who had not spoken to me in over a year, suddenly invited me to dinner? I returned to the car as if in a trance. My legs moved automatically while my mind tried to process the warning. I sat down, locked the doors, and turned on the engine, but I did not drive away. Something inside me, perhaps the same instinct that made me survive an abusive marriage for 15 years, before finally finding the courage to divorce, told me to stay and watch. From the driver's seat, I had a direct view of the dining room through the windows. The curtains were open, as if waiting for me to look. For a few minutes the house remained silent, the lights dim as if no one was home, and then, suddenly, everything lit up. One by one, The lights came on as if someone had been waiting for me to leave so they could continue with their plans. Two people I had never seen before appeared in the dining room, a man in a dark suit and a woman holding a folder. After them, Robert entered, talking on his cell phone, gesticulating as if giving important instructions. And finally, Sarah appeared, formally dressed, with a serious expression I had never seen before. This was clearly not a dinner between mother and daughter. It was a meeting, carefully planned. As I watched, Martha briefly appeared in the window. Our eyes met for a second, and she subtly shook her head. That small gesture told me everything I needed to know. Leave. But I could not. I needed to understand what was happening. I turned off the car lights and continued to observe. Robert approached the table, picked up some papers, and handed them to Sarah. She looked at them, signed something, and smiled. A cold smile that I did not recognize as my daughter's. In that moment, I felt a knot in my stomach. It was not just worry or confusion, it was fear. A primitive, visceral fear that told me that the house where I was once happy with my daughter now represented some kind of danger. And most painfully, my own daughter seemed to be at the center of it all. 15 minutes passed as I remained paralyzed, watching the strange scene unfold. Robert left the room and returned with more papers. Sarah checked something on a tablet screen. The two strangers continued to talk among themselves. It looked like a business meeting, not a family dinner. And then Robert looked at his watch and then the window directly toward my car. I instinctively ducked down, my heart racing. When I looked again, the curtains were closed. The house that was once the place where I rocked my daughter to sleep now transformed into a menacing mystery before me. I started the car and drove away, but I did not go home. I could not. I parked at a gas station a few miles away on the outskirts of Houston and tried to organize my thoughts. What kind of trap was this? Why would Sarah call me for a dinner that clearly did not exist? And most importantly, what did Martha know that scared her so much? I picked up my cell phone and looked at Sarah's message again. The words seemed different now, just the two of us. Maybe it was not an invitation to reconnect, but to something much darker. Was the woman I raised, who I loved unconditionally, plotting something against me? The idea was so painful that tears began to roll down my face without me realizing it. I went to the gas station bathroom to wash my face. In the mirror, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Grayish hair, deep dark circles, a frightened look. Was that me now? Was that what the pain of losing my daughter had transformed me into? I leaned on the sink and took a deep breath. I could not fall apart. I needed to find out what was happening. Back in the car, I realized I had a missed call. It was from an unknown number. Seconds later, the phone vibrated with a message. "Mrs. Kathy, it is me, Martha. We need to talk. Tomorrow, noon, at the coffee shop at the North Bus Terminal. It is important. Do not tell anyone." That night, I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face signing those papers, Robert looking at his watch, the look of terror in Martha's eyes. What were they planning? And why would my own daughter be involved in something against me? When the sun began to rise, I was still awake, sitting on the balcony of my small apartment, watching the city of Chicago wake up. The people in the streets seemed so normal, so oblivious to the turmoil happening in my life. What would it be like to wake up without the burden of knowing that the person you love most in the world might want to hurt you? As the clock approached noon, a determination grew inside me. I would go to that meeting with Martha and find out the truth, no matter how painful. Because the uncertainty, I realized, was even more unbearable than any truth. The bus terminal was crowded as always, people rushing to catch their buses, families saying goodbye, teenagers with huge backpacks waiting for their rides. I felt out of place there, a middle-aged woman alone, looking for answers to questions I did not even know how to ask. The coffee shop was in a secluded corner, a small place with formica tables and plastic chairs. I chose a table from where I could see the entrance and ordered a coffee that I knew I could not drink. My stomach was tied in knots. At 12:10, Martha entered. She was dressed simply, a dark jacket and a scarf partially covering her face. Her eyes darted nervously, scanning every corner of the place before heading to my table. "Mrs. Cathy," she whispered, quickly sitting down. "Thank you for coming." "Martha, for the love of God, tell me what is going on," I pleaded, holding her trembling hands across the table. "Why did you stop me from going in yesterday? What is Sarah plotting?" She looked around, as if afraid of being watched, and lowered her voice even more. "It is not just Sarah, Mrs. Cathy. It is Robert. He is controlling everything." A chill ran down my spine. I never completely trusted Robert from the beginning. There was something about him, a calculating coldness behind the charming smile. But Sarah was so in love she never wanted to listen to my concerns. "Controlling how?" I asked. Martha took a deep breath. "I have been seeing strange things happening in that house for months. Mr. Robert, he is isolating Sarah. First it was her friends, then her family. You were the last one to be pushed away." "But Sarah was the one who stopped talking to me," I argued, confused. "No, Mrs. Cathy. It was him who convinced her that you were trying to control her life, that you did not respect her choices. He twists everything. He makes Sarah believe everyone is against her, that only he protects her." Martha paused, her eyes moist. "She is losing weight because he controls even what she eats. He says she needs to stay fit, that no one likes fat women." I felt nauseous. The pieces were beginning to fit. The gradual distancing, the changes in Sarah's behavior, the way she began to repeat phrases that seemed rehearsed. "And yesterday's dinner? Why invite me?" Martha lowered her voice even more. "I overheard a conversation between them. Mr. Roberts said they needed your signature on some documents, something about the house you helped buy, and some stocks Sarah's father left her. Things you still have some control over. The apartment I helped Sarah finance when she got married was still partially in my name, and the stocks my ex-husband, Sarah's father, left when he passed away. I was the administrator until she turned 35, which would happen in a few months. They were going to make me sign papers to transfer everything to them. Not only that." Martha hesitated, her eyes fixed on mine. "I heard Mr. Robert talking to a man on the phone. He said, 'After Tuesday, everything will be ours and no one will question it. The old lady is not going to get in the way anymore.'" My blood ran cold. The old lady. Was that how Robert referred to me when he thought no one was listening? The idea that my son-in-law and my own daughter were conspiring to take my assets was devastating. But there was something more in Martha's words, something she was not saying. "There is more, is there not, Martha?" She nodded slowly, a tear rolling down her face. "Mrs. Cathy, I think they wanted to hurt you. I heard Robert talking about an accident, that it would be easy to make it look like you slipped on the stairs after drinking wine at dinner." The coffee shop began to spin around me. My own daughter? Contemplating my death? No, it could not be. That was too insane. Sarah would never agree to that. I said more to myself than to Martha. "Sarah is not the same person anymore, Mrs. Cathy. He manipulates her. She does everything he tells her to. It is as if she is hypnotized." I remained silent, trying to process it all. Part of me wanted to deny it, say it was impossible, but another part knew Martha would have no reason to invent something so horrible. "Why are you telling me this, Martha? Why risk yourself like this?" Her eyes met mine, filled with determination. "Because Sarah was a good girl before him. I saw her grow up, remember? I worked for you since she was 12, and because—" Her voice broke. Because my sister died at the hands of a man like Mr. Robert, a man who controlled everything, who isolated her from everyone, who made her believe the world was a terrible place and that only he could protect her. I felt a lump in my throat. Martha was risking her job, maybe even her safety, to warn me. Do you have proof of anything? Anything that can help us? She nodded and took a small voice recorder from her purse. I recorded some conversations and took photos of documents I found in his office. They are preparing everything for after Tuesday. Wills, transfers, everything. I took the recorder with trembling hands. Martha, do you realize this is criminal? We need to go to the police. No, she exclaimed, frightened. Not yet. Mr. Robert has friends in the police. He always mentions how easy it is to make things disappear when you know the right people. Then what do we do? Martha leaned forward. First, you need to protect yourself. You cannot go back to your apartment. They know where you live. They know your routine. We need you to stay somewhere safe while we find out more. And Sarah? We cannot just leave her with him. I will be watching her, Mrs. Cathy. If he tries anything... She did not complete the sentence, but I saw the concern in her eyes. For now, the important thing is to keep you safe. I looked out the coffee shop window at the people passing by, oblivious to the terror I was experiencing. How could I just disappear? Abandon my life, my house, my job at the little bookstore I managed in Boston? And how could I leave Sarah behind, even if she was involved in something so terrible against me? I have a cousin who lives upstate, Martha said, in Martha's Vineyard. We can say you went to visit her. No one will look there. The idea of running away, of hiding, was almost as terrifying as the revelations I had just heard. But what else could I do? What if I tried to talk to Sarah alone without Robert? Maybe she... Mrs. Cathy, Martha interrupted, firmness in her voice. You do not understand. She is not going to choose you. Not now. He has total control over her. Her words hit me like a punch. The truth I did not want to face. I had already lost my daughter. Not when she stopped talking to me a year ago, but long before, when that man entered our lives and began to weave his web of manipulation. I will go to your cousin's house, I finally decided, but not to hide, to think, to plan how we are going to save Sarah. Martha nodded, visibly relieved. That is best, Mrs. Cathy. I will keep watching here and keep you informed. We are going to get Sarah out of this situation. When we left the coffee shop, the world seemed different, more menacing. The midday sun no longer warmed, and the faces of the people around seemed like masks hiding unknown intentions. I was about to leave everything I knew behind, fleeing a danger that came from the person I loved most in the world. I looked at Martha one last time before we parted. Take care and watch over my daughter. Always, Mrs. Cathy. I walked to my car, feeling the weight of the voice recorder in my jacket pocket. That small object contained the truth that could destroy my family forever, but it could also be the key to saving my daughter from a monster that was consuming her from the inside. Martha's cousin's house was in a small town about 3 hours from the city, near Martha's Vineyard. It was a simple place with dirt roads and people who still left their doors unlocked at night. Albertina, a woman in her 70s, received me as if we were old friends, without asking many questions when Martha vaguely explained that I needed a place to stay for a few weeks. Any friend of Martha's is a friend of mine too, she said, showing me the back room of the house, with an iron bed and floral curtains that reminded me of my grandmother's house. Stay as long as you need. On that first night, sitting on the porch under a starry sky that was never seen in the city, I tried to put my thoughts in order. I listened to the recordings Martha had given me and examined the photographs of the documents. Each piece of evidence was more disturbing than the last. Robert had meticulously created a scheme to appropriate not only the stocks that belonged to Sarah, but also properties that were in my name. There was a forged will with my supposed signature leaving everything to Sarah in the event of my death, and other documents, transfers, powers of attorney, all with forgeries of my signature, just waiting for dates to be registered. But the most terrifying thing was listening to my own daughter's voice in those recordings. A voice I barely recognized, mechanically agreeing with Robert, repeating rehearsed phrases about how I always controlled her, how I never supported her, how I deserved to be alone. It was like listening to his words coming out of her mouth, as if he were a ventriloquist and she, his puppet. The next morning I picked up my phone to call Richard, my lawyer and lifelong friend, but I hesitated. What if Robert was monitoring my calls? What if he found out where I was? I decided to be more cautious. I used Albertina's landline phone to call from a number Robert did not know. "Kathy?" Richard answered, surprised. "Where are you? I called your cell phone several times." I needed to leave the city for a few days," I answered vaguely. "Richard, I need your help, but it has to be discreet." I explained the situation as briefly as possible, without going into details over the phone. Richard listened in silence, occasionally asking pointed questions. "This is serious, Kathy," he finally said. "If you have proof of what you are saying, we need to go to the police immediately." "Not yet," I replied, remembering Martha's warning. "Robert has contacts. We need to be strategic." "So what do you suggest?" "I need more concrete proof, something that cannot be ignored or covered up." Richard was silent for a few seconds. "I have a friend in the FBI, someone outside the local circle. I can talk to him without mentioning names yet." "Do that," I agreed. "Meanwhile, I need you to do something for me. Go to my apartment and look for a blue folder in the back of my closet. There are important documents there." "Is your spare key still in the same place?" "Yes, with Mrs. Lopez in apartment 302. In the following days, I established a routine at Albertina's house. During the day, I helped with chores to keep my mind occupied. At night, I reviewed the evidence, taking notes, connecting the dots. Martha sent me short messages from a prepaid phone, updating me on the situation at the house. "Robert is nervous, asking about you. Sarah seems confused. I overheard an argument. He is making strange calls. He mentions Plan B." Each message increased my anxiety. What would this Plan B be? And how was Sarah reacting to my disappearance? Part of me wanted to run back, confront them, demand an explanation, but another part knew that would be suicide. If they were really planning to kill me, showing up without a plan would only speed up the process. On the fourth day, Richard called me. "I managed to talk to my contact at the FBI. He is interested in the case but needs more details. And Kathy, I went to your apartment." The tone of his voice alarmed me. "What happened?" "Someone was there. The place was ransacked. The blue folder. I did not find it." My blood ran cold. The folder contained original documents of the properties, the stocks, legitimate wills. It was my security in case something happened to me. "He is one step ahead of us," I murmured. "There is more," Richard continued. "There is an investigation about you." "What? What kind of investigation?" "It seems someone reported irregularities at the bookstore, tax evasion, money laundering. It is completely absurd, but it is ongoing." Robert's strategy was clear. If I showed up, it would be to face criminal accusations, a public scandal that would facilitate the takeover of everything I had built. "And Sarah? Did you manage to talk to her?" Richard sighed. "I tried. She is not answering my calls. I went to her house and the security guard would not let me in. He said she was not receiving visitors. The situation was worsening faster than I imagined. They were not only trying to erase my financial existence, but also my reputation. It was a perfect trap. If I stayed hidden, I would lose everything. If I appeared, I would be arrested." "We need to act faster," I decided. Your contact at the FBI? Can he start an investigation without alerting local police? Possibly, but he would need concrete evidence. I have recordings, photographs of documents. Will that be enough to start? Maybe. I will check. When I hung up, I realized Albertina was at the kitchen door, watching me with concern. Serious problems, right? She asked, sitting at the table with me. I nodded, without going into details. She took my hands in hers, wrinkled by time and work. You know, my daughter, when I was young, my husband used to hit me every day for anything. I thought I deserved it. That is how things worked. Until one day he hit our son. That is when I realized it was not about me. It was about him, the power he wanted to have over us. I looked at her, surprised by the sudden confession. What I am saying, she continued, is that sometimes we need to see someone we love being hurt to understand that we are being hurt too. Your daughter is in danger, right? Yes, I admitted, but she does not see it. Because he does not let her see it. That is how they work. They isolate, they control, they make the person doubt their own judgment. And when they finally wake up, it is already too late. How did you escape? Albertina's face lit up with a sad smile. I did not escape. He died. He had a heart attack during one of his fits of rage. God has a peculiar sense of humor, right? She got up, adjusting her apron. But you can still save your daughter and yourself. When she left, I kept thinking about her words. Maybe Albertina was right. Maybe the problem had never been between Sarah and me. It was Robert who had created that division, feeding it with lies and manipulations. And if my daughter was repeating those horrible phrases about me, it was not because she believed them, but because he had programmed her to say them. That night, I received a message from Martha that changed everything. He is planning to take her away. I heard him talking about a house abroad. He says you two will never see each other again. Take her away? Where? Why? The question spun in my mind. If Robert managed to take Sarah out of the country, I truly might never see her again. And if he had already managed to change her so much in just 2 years, what would he do when he had her completely isolated, with no one to question him? I could not wait any longer. I could not trust the legal system to act in time. My daughter was in immediate danger, even if she did not realize it. I needed to get her out of Robert's clutches before it was too late. I picked up my phone and called Richard. Change of plans? I said as soon as he answered. We are not waiting for the formal investigation. We need to act now. What do you have in mind? A rescue, I replied, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. We are going to get my daughter out of that house, and you are going to help me. The next 2 days were dedicated to devising a plan that, under normal circumstances, I would consider insane. But nothing had been normal for a long time. Richard, initially reluctant, ended up agreeing that we could not wait for the slow legal process, especially with Robert's threat to take Sarah out of the country. You understand this could go wrong in many ways, right? He warned me during one of our conversations on the prepaid phone Albertina lent me. I understand, I replied. But staying put while my daughter disappears forever would be much worse. Richard had contacts. One of them was Charles, a former police officer who now worked as a private investigator in San Diego. Another was Denise, a psychologist specializing in victims of abusive relationships. Both agreed to help, more out of friendship with Richard than believing my story. But that did not matter. What I needed were competent people, not conviction. The plan was relatively simple. We needed to create a situation where Sarah was alone, without Robert, long enough for us to talk to her. Martha would be crucial for this. She would inform us when Robert left the house, preferably for a few hours, and then we would act. What if she does not want to go with you? Charles asked during our meeting at the small diner on the highway halfway between Chicago and the town where I was hiding. She does not need to want to, Denise explained. In cases of severe psychological manipulation, the victim rarely recognizes their situation. Our mission is to create a disruption in the control, allow her to think for herself, even if only for a few hours. What if he returns while we are there? I questioned, feeling a chill down my spine just thinking about the possibility. I will be prepared, Charles replied, without elaborating, but his tone made me believe he knew how to deal with men like Robert. The opportunity arose 3 days later. Martha sent me a message at 9 a.m. He is going to Miami today. Business meeting. Flight at 11 a.m. He is only coming back tonight. She will be home alone. My heart raced. Was it now or never? I met Richard, Charles, and Denise at the agreed-upon spot, a gas station 10 minutes from Sarah's house. Richard seemed nervous, constantly looking at his watch. Charles was calm, almost indifferent, as if we were just there for a casual coffee. Denise reviewed her notes, probably preparing the psychological approach. "Remember," she said, "Sarah will likely resist. She might yell, cry, accuse us of being against her. That is normal. The important thing is to stay calm and convey security." At 3 p.m., we received confirmation from Martha. Robert had left, and the plane had already taken off. It was our signal. The drive to Sarah's house was in tense silence. Everyone in the car seemed immersed in their own thoughts. I tried to imagine what it would be like to see my daughter again after so long, and under such strange circumstances. We arrived at the gated community. Charles, wearing a delivery uniform and carrying a fake box, managed to get the security guard to open the gate without question. Once inside, we drove slowly to the house. Martha was waiting for us in the backyard, out of sight of the neighbors. "She is in the living room," she informed us, visibly nervous. "Watching television. She is not well. She barely left the room in the last few days." "Any sign of Robert?" Charles asked. "None. He called half an hour ago to check if she was home. It is what he always does, calls every hour when he is out." "Then we have about 30 minutes before the next call," Richard calculated. "We need to be fast." We entered through the back door, which Martha had left unlocked. The house was silent, except for the low sound of the television coming from the living room. I walked ahead, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it could be heard. And then, after more than a year, I saw my daughter. Sarah was sitting on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, despite the heat of the day. She was so thin, I barely recognized her. Her hair, once long and shiny, was lifeless, pulled back in a messy bun. Deep, dark circles marked her pale face. My beautiful daughter, always so full of life, looked like a ghost of herself. She did not notice our presence immediately. Absorbed in some television program she did not even seem to be truly watching. When she finally saw me, her eyes widened in shock. "Mom?" she whispered, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. "Hi, honey," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the tears threatening to fall. She got up abruptly, letting the blanket drop. She was wearing loose pajamas that further accentuated her alarming thinness. "What are you doing here? How did you get in?" I immediately sensed the fear in her voice. It was not just surprise, it was panic. "We need to talk, Sarah," I said, taking a step toward her. "I am worried about you." She backed away, looking nervously at the strangers accompanying me. "You cannot be here. Robert will be back soon. You have to leave." "Your husband is in Miami," Charles calmly informed her. "He will not return until tonight." The panic in Sarah's eyes intensified. "How do you know that? Are you watching me? I am going to call the police." She frantically searched for her cell phone, but Martha had already removed it from the room as we agreed. Denise stepped forward, her voice soft and controlled. "Sarah, my name is Denise. I am a psychologist, and I am here to help. We are not here to hurt you. We just want to talk." I do not need help, Sarah replied automatically, as if repeating something she had heard many times. I am perfectly fine. You are the problem, always interfering in my life. The words hit me like stabs, but Denise had prepared me for this. They were Robert's words, not Sarah's. Honey, I tried again. You invited me to dinner. Remember? Last Tuesday, you sent me a message. Sarah looked confused for a moment. I did not send anything. Yes, you did, I insisted, showing her the message on my phone. She looked at the screen, the confusion even more evident. That is my number, but I did not write that. It was Robert, was not it? I asked gently. He took your phone and sent that message pretending to be you. Sarah opened her mouth to deny it, but then closed it again, as if something was clicking in her mind. He said it would be good for us to reconcile, that he felt I was sad about not talking to you anymore, but then he said you canceled, that you did not want to see me. I went, Sarah, at the agreed time, but Martha stopped me from entering because she overheard Robert planning something against me. Sarah looked at Martha, who nodded silently. It is true, girl. I heard him talking about making it look like an accident, about how you would inherit everything after your mom fell down the stairs. No, Sarah murmured, shaking her head. He would not do that. He loves me. He protects me. Protects you from what, Sarah? Denise asked, her voice still calm. From the world? From the people who love you? Look at yourself. Are you happy, healthy, or are you scared all the time? Sarah began to cry, her shoulders shaking under the weight of the questions. I wanted to run to her, hug her, say everything would be okay, but Denise had been clear. We needed to maintain emotional distance in this first moment. Sarah needed to process. He says you do not understand me, she sobbed. That you want to control me. That only he knows what is best for me. And do you believe that? I asked softly. I do not know what to believe anymore, she admitted, suddenly looking exhausted. I am so tired. It was in that moment that I realized how much my daughter was hurting, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically. Robert had systematically destroyed her confidence, her sense of reality, her connection to the world, and I had allowed this to happen, staying distant when I should have fought harder. Sarah, Denise said, you do not need to decide anything now. We are just asking you to come with us for a few hours, to talk in a neutral place, without Robert's influence. He will be furious if I leave, she murmured, the fear evident in her voice. Does he control where you go? Charles asked, his tone professional, but his eyes revealing indignation. Sarah hesitated, as if she was realizing the absurdity of the situation for the first time. He says it is for my safety, that there are people who want to hurt us. People like your mother? Richard questioned, speaking for the first time. Sarah looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I had not seen in a long time. Doubt, not about me, but about the lies she had believed. He said you wanted to separate me from him because you were jealous, because I had a perfect marriage, and you failed at yours. I took a deep breath, feeling the pain of those words, but understanding they were not really hers. Sarah, your father and I separated because he cheated on me. You know that, and I never, ever wanted anything but your happiness. If Robert truly made you happy, I would be the first to support you. But he does not make you happy, does he? Denise continued, seizing the moment of vulnerability. You are increasingly isolated, thinner, more afraid. Sarah's tears flowed freely now. He says I am fat, that no one will want me if I do not take care of myself, that I should be grateful he accepts me like this. My heart broke upon hearing that. My beautiful daughter, always so self-confident, reduced to doubting even her appearance. "Sarah," Martha said, approaching cautiously, "Mr. Robert is not who you think he is. He is manipulating you, just as he manipulated your mother's documents." "What documents?" Sarah asked, confused. Richard took out some copies of the forgeries that Martha had photographed from his folder. "These," he said, "your signature and your mother's, forged, part of a plan to take control of the properties, the stocks, everything." Sarah examined the papers, confusion giving way to shock. This is my signature, but I never signed these documents." "And this is my signature," I added, "on documents I never saw." Suddenly, the house's landline phone rang, startling all of us. The clock on the wall read 1:30 p.m., the time for Robert's verification call. "It is him," Sarah whispered, the panic returning. "If I do not answer—" "Answer," Denise instructed. "Act normally. Say everything is fine." Sarah hesitated, looking at all of us, clearly divided. Finally, with trembling hands, she answered the phone. "Hello, honey," she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice was tight. "Yes, I am home." "No, nothing different." "Yes, I am following the meal plan." "No, no visitors." She paused, looking at us with increasing alarm. "No, I am not hiding anything. I am not hiding." "Yes, I am alone. Only Martha is here." Another pause, longer. "Robert, I am not lying. Please do not talk like that. No, I am not crying." The desperation in her voice was palpable. Robert clearly perceived that something was wrong, even over the phone. "We need to leave now," Charles murmured, sensing the situation. "Sarah," I whispered, "come with us, please." She looked at me, the phone still to her ear, silent tears rolling down her face. Then, in a moment of clarity that gave me hope, she said into the phone, "Robert, I need to hang up. I am not feeling well." And she hung up, ignoring the immediate ringing that followed. "He is going to call the security guard," she said, quickly grabbing a purse. "We have to leave before he locks the gates." There was no time to celebrate that small victory. We quickly left through the back, exactly as we entered. Charles went to get the car while we waited in the garden, tense, attentive to any movement. "He is going to find me," Sarah murmured, hugging herself. "He always finds me." "Not this time," I promised, finally allowing myself to touch her arm. "This time I am here, and I am not going to let him hurt you again." When the car arrived, we quickly got in. Charles drove fast, but not fast enough to draw attention. In the rearview mirror, I saw the gated community security guard leaving the booth, looking around, probably looking for Sarah at Robert's request. We were on the highway when Martha's cell phone rang. She answered, pale. "Mr. Robert, no, I do not know where she is. I went out to do the shopping." She hung up, trembling. "He is furious. He is taking the first flight back." "How much time do we have?" Richard asked. 2, maybe 3 hours, if he gets an immediate flight." It was not much time, but it would have to be enough. I looked at Sarah sitting next to me, seeming both relieved and terrified. She had taken the first step, the hardest one, but the battle was just beginning. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice small. "To a safe place," I replied, holding her hand. "A place where he cannot reach you." And as the car continued down the highway, taking us away from that house of horrors, I felt a mixture of fear and determination. Robert would come after us, with all his rage and resources, but I would not back down. Not this time. My daughter needed me, and I would be there for her, no matter the cost. The safe place was a small ranch belonging to Charles's family, about 100 kilometers from the city. It was isolated enough to give us privacy, but close enough to civilization not to be completely vulnerable. The main house was simple, with 3 bedrooms, a large living room, and a rustic kitchen. Sarah remained silent for most of the trip. Occasionally she picked up the cell phone that Martha had returned to her before leaving and looked at the screen, but did not answer Robert's constant calls. Every time the phone rang, she flinched as if expecting a physical blow. "We can turn it off," Denise suggested gently. "You do not need to hear his voice right now." Sarah hesitated, but ended up handing the device to Denise, who turned it off and put it in her purse. When we arrived at the ranch, it was already getting dark. The sky had that purple color that precedes total darkness, and the first stars were beginning to appear. "Let us go inside," Charles said, parking the car near the porch. No one followed us, but it is better not to stay exposed. The house was clean, but with that characteristic smell of places that are closed for a long time. Charles turned on the lights and quickly checked the rooms, ensuring we were truly alone. Richard went to the kitchen to make coffee, while Denise led Sarah to the living room sofa, talking to her in a low voice, probably using techniques to calm her down. I stood in the middle of the room, watching my daughter, still trying to process that she was actually there, that we had managed to get her out of that house. It seemed unreal, like a dream I was afraid to wake up from. "You two need to talk," Denise said, getting up. "I will help Richard in the kitchen." I sat next to Sarah, keeping a respectful distance. She was hunched over herself, as if trying to take up the minimum possible space, her thin, pale hands nervously twisted in her lap. "How are you feeling?" I asked, knowing it was a silly question, but not knowing where else to start. She shrugged, a gesture that reminded me so much of the teenager she once was. "Confused, scared, I do not know what I am doing here." "You are here because a part of you knows something is wrong," I replied softly, even if it is hard to admit it. Sarah looked up at me, and I saw a mixture of anger, fear, and confusion in her eyes. "You hate Robert. You have always hated him, since the beginning." "No, Sarah. I distrusted him when I realized how he was changing you, how he was pulling you away from everyone who loved you." "He protects me," she replied automatically, but her voice lacked conviction. "From what, honey? From whom? From your mother who only wants to see you happy? From your friends you have not seen in over a year? From your life you abandoned for him?" She did not answer, but I saw tears forming in her eyes. "Sarah, look at yourself," I continued, trying not to sound accusatory. "You are so thin I barely recognized you. You are scared of a call from your own husband. You live isolated, without friends, without family. Is that protection, or is that prison?" A tear escaped and slid down her cheek. He says it is for my own good, that I was naive, that people wanted to take advantage of me." "And who took advantage of you, honey? Your friends who called you every day until you stopped answering? Me who called you for months without a response? Or the man who controls what you eat, where you go, who you talk to?" She covered her face with her hands, sobbing silently. I wanted to hug her, but I knew I needed to let her process her own emotions. Sarah needed to come to her own conclusions. "When was the last time you felt truly happy?" I asked after a moment. She lifted her face, thoughtful. I do not know before, I think. Before everything got so complicated. Before he started isolating you. Before making you doubt yourself and everyone around you." Sarah nodded slowly, as if admitting something to herself for the first time. "In the beginning it was different. He was attentive, affectionate. He made me feel special." "That is how they work," Richard said, returning to the room with a tray of coffee. "They start by making you feel like the most important person in the world. Then slowly they diminish you, isolate you, until you depend completely on them." Sarah looked at him, curious. "How do you know that?" Richard placed the tray on the table and sat on the armchair across from us. "My sister went through something similar. It took us years until we realized what was going on. When we finally managed to get her out of that situation, she was barely the person we knew. "And how is she now?" Sarah asked, a spark of hope in her eyes. "Better. Not fully recovered. I doubt anyone fully recovers from that kind of abuse. But she is living again. She has friends, she works, she smiles. Simple things that seemed impossible before." The word abuse made Sarah flinch. "He never hit me," she murmured. "Abuse is not just physical, Sarah," Denise explained, joining us. "Control, manipulation, isolation, gaslighting, all of these are forms of abuse." "Gaslighting?" Sarah repeated, confused. "It is when someone makes you doubt your own perception of reality, when they say things that happened did not happen, or that you are imagining things, when they transform your legitimate concerns into paranoia." Sarah was silent, and I could see the gears turning in her mind, connecting dots, reliving memories in a new light. He does that," she finally admitted, her voice almost inaudible. "When I say I am worried about something, he says I am exaggerating. When I remember something he said or did, he swears it never happened, that I am confusing things. And when someone like your mother tries to warn you," Denise continued, "he convinces you that that person has a hidden motive, that they are trying to separate you out of jealousy or malice." Sarah looked at me, understanding slowly forming in her eyes. "He said you were controlling, that you wanted me to fail so you could continue to depend on me." "I just wanted you to be happy, honey," I replied, feeling my own voice break, and I could see that you were disappearing before my eyes. Charles's phone rang, interrupting our moment. He answered quickly, and his expression became serious. "He is at Albertina's house," he reported, hanging up. "One of my contacts in the police alerted me. Robert managed to trace a call you made from there, Kathy. He is furious, threatening everyone." My blood ran cold. "Albertina is okay?" "Yes, she was not home, but he is questioning the neighbors, showing photos of you and Sarah. It is a matter of time until someone mentions seeing you leave together." Sarah paled even more, if that was possible. "He is going to find us," she whispered, the panic evident in her voice. "No, he is not," Charles guaranteed. "No one knows about this ranch except people we fully trust, and we are prepared if he tries anything." "Prepared how?" I asked, alarmed. Charles opened his jacket, revealing a gun at his waist. "I am an ex-cop, remember? I have a legal permit, and I will not hesitate to use it if he threatens anyone here." The sight of the weapon made me uneasy, but also strangely relieved. Robert was not the type of man who would back down from words or empty threats. He was dangerous, and maybe we needed real protection. "What do we do now?" Richard asked. He is clearly willing to do anything to find them. "We need to take the evidence we have and go to the FBI, I decided. "First thing tomorrow morning, as soon as it is light. The longer we wait, the more dangerous the situation becomes." "Agreed," Charles said. "I have a friend who can accompany us to the precinct. Ensure we are heard by the right people." I looked at Sarah, who was trembling slightly. "Are you willing to testify against him? To tell what he did to you? To our family?" She hesitated, fear still evident in her eyes, but then slowly she nodded. "Yes, I am tired of living like this, tired of being afraid all the time." Those simple words filled me with hope. My daughter was coming back slowly, finding her voice, her strength. "Then it is decided," Richard declared. "Tomorrow morning we go to the precinct. Tonight we rest." Charles organized a surveillance scheme. He and Richard would take turns ensuring no one approached the house during the night. Denise prepared a mild sedative for Sarah, who was obviously exhausted, both physically and emotionally. I accompanied her to one of the bedrooms, where she lay down without even changing her clothes. I sat beside her on the bed, watching her tired face. "Mom?" she murmured, already half asleep due to the medication. "Yes, honey?" I am so sorry. For everything. For believing him instead of trusting you. I stroked her hair, as I used to when she was little. It was not your fault, honey. Men like Robert are specialists in manipulation. You had no way of knowing. I should have known, she insisted, her eyes closing. I should have seen the signs. Shh, I whispered. Rest now. Tomorrow we will have time to talk about all of that. She took my hand, squeezing it weakly. Do not leave me, Mom. Please. Never again, I promised, feeling tears in my eyes. I will never leave you alone again. I stayed by her side until she was completely asleep, her breathing becoming deep and regular. Looking at her like that, vulnerable and exhausted, I silently renewed my promise. No one else would hurt my daughter. No one would make her feel small or insignificant again. Not Robert, nor any other man. When I was sure she was sleeping soundly, I quietly left the room. In the living room I found Richard, Charles, and Denise talking in low voices. How is she? Denise asked. Sleeping, I replied, suddenly feeling exhausted. The medicine worked quickly. She needs that rest, Denise said. Her body and mind have been in a constant state of alert for a long time. It is exhausting to live under that kind of tension. I sat with them, accepting a cup of coffee Richard offered me. What do you think will happen tomorrow? I asked. If all goes well, Robert will be summoned to give a statement, Charles explained. With the evidence we have, the recordings, the forged documents, Sarah and Martha's testimony, there is a good chance we will get an immediate restraining order. And if it does not work? I questioned, fear consuming me again. We go to Plan B, Richard replied. I have contacts in other states. We can get them a safe place to stay until we resolve everything legally. The idea of running away, of hiding with Sarah somewhere distant, was not ideal, but I would do anything to keep her safe. We talked for a while longer, refining details of the plan for the next day, until exhaustion finally overcame me. Denise accompanied me to another room, ensuring I also rested. You were very brave today, she said, as I lay down. Saving someone from an abusive relationship is one of the most difficult and dangerous things you can do. She is my daughter, I replied simply. I would do anything for her. Denise smiled gently. Rest now. Tomorrow will be an important day. When she left, I lay looking at the ceiling, trying to organize my thoughts. So many things had happened in the last few days. My life had been turned upside down since that text message I received on Thursday. It felt like an eternity. I fell asleep thinking about Sarah, the smiling girl she was, the strong woman I knew she could be again. I dreamed of simpler days, when it was just the two of us against the world, after her father left. Days of laughter in the kitchen, movies on the sofa, late-night secrets. I woke up startled by the sound of breaking glass. For a moment I was disoriented, not knowing where I was. Then the memory came back in a flash. The ranch, Sarah's rescue, the plan for the next day. I quickly got up, my heart pounding. The digital clock on the nightstand read 3:17 a.m. The house was silent, except for muffled voices coming from the living room. I left the room cautiously, following the dark hallway. The voices became clearer. One of them was Charles's, tense and low. The other, my blood ran cold. It was Robert. "Where are they?" his voice demanded, with a coldness that made me shiver. "I already said I do not know what you are talking about," Charles replied, his voice controlled but firm. "Do not take me for an idiot," Robert growled. "I know Kathy took my wife, I know you are helping, and I know they are here." I stopped at the corner of the hallway, hidden in the shadows. From my position I could partially see the living room. Charles was standing, blocking Robert's path. His hand was close to his waist, where I knew he carried the gun. Robert had his back to me, but his posture was aggressive, intimidating. "You are trespassing on private property," Charles said, still calm. "I suggest you leave before I call the police." Robert laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "The police? Do you really think they will believe you? I have friends at the precinct. They know my wife is going through psychological problems, that her mother is exploiting that to take her away from me." My heart raced. Robert had already prepared the ground, building a narrative that made us look like the villains of the story, typical of an abuser, always anticipating, always controlling the narrative. "I am not alone, you know," Robert continued, taking a step toward Charles. "I have people out there. If you do not bring Sarah to me now, things are going to get very ugly." I saw Charles's hand move toward the weapon. "I am asking you one more time. Get out of this house, now." Time seemed to freeze. I knew I was about to witness something horrible. If Robert advanced, Charles would pull out the gun. If Charles pulled out the gun, Robert would react. Someone could get hurt, or worse. It was then that I heard a door opening behind me. I turned and saw Sarah coming out of the room, her eyes wide with fear. "It is him," she whispered. "He found us." Before I could stop her, Sarah passed me and entered the living room. "Robert!" she called, her voice trembling. Both men turned toward her. Charles's face showed alarm, Robert's a mixture of triumph and contained rage. "Darling," Robert said, his tone suddenly sweet, though his eyes remained cold. "I was so worried about you. Let us go home now, shall we?" He extended his hand toward her, but Sarah did not move. She was standing in the middle of the room, visibly shaking, but holding firm. "No," she said, the word coming out as a sigh. Robert's face hardened. "What did you say?" "I said no," Sarah repeated, a little louder this time. "I am not going back with you." I walked into the living room, positioning myself next to Sarah. Richard and Denise appeared from other rooms, clearly alerted by the commotion. "You heard my daughter," I said, looking directly at Robert. "She is not going anywhere with you." Robert faced us, his gaze going from Sarah to me to the others in the room. For a moment I thought he was going to attack. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "That is fine," he said, taking a step back, "if that is how you want to play." He put his hand in his pocket and pulled out a cell phone. He dialed a number and spoke briefly. "They are here, all of them." Before any of us could react, bright lights flooded the living room windows, car headlights, many cars. "Like I said," Robert continued, his smile widening, "I did not come alone." Charles ran to the window and peered through a gap in the curtain. "Damn it," he murmured. "There are at least 3 cars out there, and that is a police car." My heart sank. How had Robert found us? How had he managed to bring the police to his side so quickly? "See," Robert said, addressing Sarah. "Everyone knows your mother is manipulating you, that she kidnapped you to take you away from me. They are here to take you home, where you belong." Sarah looked at him, fear clear in her eyes, but something else too, determination. "No," she said again, her voice firmer this time. "I am not going with you. Never again." Robert's smile faltered, giving way to an expression of naked fury. "You have no choice, sweetie. You are my wife. You do what I say. You always have. You always will." At that moment there was a loud knock on the door. "Police! Open up!" Richard shot me a desperate look. "What do we do?" "We have the evidence," Denise reminded us. "The recordings, the documents. We are not doing anything wrong here." "But will they listen to us?" I questioned, panic beginning to grow. "If Robert has already convinced them we are the villains." Charles made a quick decision. "We are going to open it. If we try to resist, it will only make everything worse." He went to the door and opened it. 2 uniformed police officers entered, followed by a man in a suit, who we presumed to be a detective. "What is going on here?" the detective asked, looking around the room. Robert immediately assumed the role of the worried husband. Detective Johnson, as I explained, my wife disappeared yesterday. Her mother convinced her to run away. I am just trying to bring her home. The detective looked at Sarah. Ma'am, is this true? Are you here of your own free will? Before Sarah could answer, Robert intervened. She is not well, Detective. She has a history of emotional problems. She is confused. The anger grew inside me. My daughter does not have any problems, I exclaimed. It is that man who has manipulated and psychologically abused her for years. The detective looked at me with skepticism. Ma'am, we have an official report that you may have kidnapped your own daughter. That is absurd, Richard protested. We have proof of abuse, manipulation, forged documents, testimonies. Are you going to believe them? Robert laughed, addressing the detective. They are her friends. Obviously, they are going to say anything to cover for her. The atmosphere was tense, with everyone talking at the same time. The police officers seemed confused, looking from one group to another, clearly not knowing who to believe. It was then that Sarah stepped forward. I want to file a complaint, she said, her voice surprisingly clear and firm. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Complaint about what, ma'am? The detective asked. Psychological and emotional abuse, Sarah replied. Forgery of documents, attempted fraud, maybe even attempted homicide. Robert paled. You are delusional, sweetie. No one is going to believe that. I have proof, Sarah continued, ignoring him. She turned to Denise, who quickly handed her purse to her. From inside, Sarah pulled out the voice recorder Martha had given me. Here are recordings of my husband discussing plans to forge my mother's signature, to take control of her properties. There are also recordings of him talking about an accident my mother would suffer during a dinner that was never planned to happen. The detective took the recorder, looking at it with interest. This is serious, ma'am. Are you sure of what you are saying? Absolutely, Sarah replied. Then slowly she unbuttoned the sleeve of her blouse and rolled it up, revealing bruises on her arms, finger marks, clearly visible against her pale skin. And this, she said, is what happens when I disagree with him, when I do not eat exactly what he dictates, when I talk to someone without his permission. I looked at my daughter's arms, feeling nauseous. How did I not realize? How did I not see the physical signs of abuse? But of course Robert was too smart to leave marks where people could see. And he had kept us away for so long. The detective looked at Robert, his expression now very serious. Sir, I think we need to talk at the precinct. This is ridiculous, Robert exploded, his control finally breaking. She is lying. All of them are. He took a step toward Sarah, his face contorted with rage. But the police officers quickly intercepted him, grabbing his arms. I think it is best if you come with us now, sir, one of the officers said. You do not understand, Robert continued, struggling. She is mine. You cannot take her from me. I did everything for her. As the police officers dragged him outside, Robert continued shouting threats and insults. Sarah stood watching, a single tear rolling down her face. When the door finally closed, leaving the living room in a heavy silence, Sarah turned toward me. Without saying a word, she fell into my arms, sobbing like a child. It is over, I whispered, stroking her hair. It is over, honey. You are safe now. But I knew it was not over. It was just the beginning of a long journey. Robert would probably be released on bail. There would be investigations, statements, maybe a trial, and the path to Sarah's recovery would be long and difficult. But for the first time in over a year, I felt hope. My daughter had found her voice, her courage. She had taken the first step to break free from that cycle of abuse, and I would be by her side every step of the way. The following months were difficult, as we expected. Robert was released on bail, as we predicted. but with a restraining order that prevented him from approaching Sarah or me. He violated that order 3 times in the first few weeks, which resulted in his pretrial detention while the case was being investigated. Sarah and I moved to a small apartment in another city, Atlanta, where no one knew us. Starting over was not easy, but it was necessary. Every day I saw small signs that my daughter was returning to who she was before Robert entered our lives. The first few weeks were the hardest. Sarah alternated between moments of clarity and strength and periods of deep doubt, where she even questioned if she had done the right thing by leaving Robert. "What if he is right?" she murmured one night, sitting on the balcony of our new apartment, looking at the stars. "What if I cannot live without him?" "You lived without him for 25 years before you met him," I replied gently. "And you were an incredible person, independent, full of dreams and plans." "I do not remember that person anymore," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. "I remember," I said, holding her hand, "and I am going to help you find her again." Sarah started therapy with Denise, who offered to see her pro bono until we were financially settled. In the sessions, she slowly unearthed the layers of manipulation and abuse Robert had built around her. With each revelation, my heart broke a little more. How he controlled what she ate, insisting she was fat when she was actually dangerously thin. How he checked her phone daily, deleting messages from friends and family, sometimes replying as if he were her to push people away. How he convinced her gradually that I was toxic, controlling, jealous of their happiness. "I believed him," she told me one day, crying in my arms. "I believed him when he said you were trying to separate us because you were jealous. How could I be so blind?" "Manipulators are specialists in distorting reality," I explained, repeating what Denise had taught us. "They find small insecurities and exploit them, transforming them into walls that separate you from the people who love you." Richard took care of the legal process. The investigation revealed much more than we expected. Robert had not only forged signatures on documents, he had created an elaborate scheme to transfer not only Sarah's properties and stocks, but also mine, to accounts abroad. There was evidence of other financial crimes involving other partners he had manipulated over the years. "He is a serial predator," Richard explained, showing us the reports. "You were not the first victims, but I hope you are the last." When the case finally went to trial, 6 months after that night at the ranch, Sarah was strong enough to testify. I watched her in the courtroom, telling her story with a clarity and firmness that brought tears to my eyes. She was no longer the fragile, scared woman we rescued from that house. Robert was convicted on multiple charges, including fraud, forgery, psychological abuse, and attempted scam. The sentence, 15 years without possibility of parole for the first 8. When we left the courtroom that day, Sarah took a deep breath, looking up at the blue sky above us. "It is strange," she said. "I still love him, in some twisted way. It is as if a part of me still wants to believe that everything we lived was real, that he truly cared." "What you felt for him was real," I replied. "The problem is that what he felt for you was not love, it was possession, and there is a huge difference between the two." She nodded slowly. "I am going to need time to unlearn everything he taught me, to trust again, others and myself." "You have all the time in the world, honey, and you are not alone on this journey." 5 years have passed since that night at the ranch. 5 years of healing, rebuilding, rediscovery. Sarah completed her master's degree and now works at a domestic violence victim support center in San Francisco. I continue with the bookstore, which became not only a business, but a space for welcoming and awareness. Robert is serving his sentence with no right to contact us. We occasionally receive news about him through Richard, who keeps an eye on the case. Apparently he found a new victim by correspondence, a woman who believes she is communicating with an unjustly accused businessman. The authorities were alerted, and the communication is being monitored. Some scars never completely disappear, There are moments when Sarah is startled by a sudden noise, or when her gaze becomes distant, when something reminds her of those years. There are nights when I still have nightmares about what could have happened if we had not acted in time. But there are also moments of pure joy, freedom, and peace. Like today, on a Sunday afternoon, when we host friends for a barbecue in the backyard of the small apartment building we bought together. Sarah is smiling, talking animatedly with a group, her confidence restored, her inner beauty visible to all again. Martha is here too. She left her job at Robert's house, which was sold to pay indemnities, and now works with us at the bookstore. She and Sarah developed a strong friendship, united by the shared experience. Richard, Charles, and Denise became part of our chosen family. We gather regularly, not just to remember the past, but to celebrate the present and plan the future. As I watch this scene, my happy daughter, surrounded by people who truly care about her, I feel a deep gratitude, not only for having survived, but for having learned to live again, for real. Sarah sees me watching and smiles, that smile that lights up her eyes and warms my heart. She excuses herself from her friends and comes toward me, sitting beside me on the garden bench. "What are you thinking about?" she asks me, resting her head on my shoulder, as she did when she was a child. "How strange life is," I answer. "How sometimes we need to go through hell to find the way back home." She nods, understanding perfectly. "You know what I learned from all this?" she says after a moment of silence. "What, honey?" "That true love does not imprison, it does not control, it does not diminish. True love frees, strengthens, makes you grow." She squeezes my hand. "Like yours for me." Silent tears roll down my face. 5 years ago, I was desperate, sitting in my car, watching my daughter through a window, trying to understand how we had reached that point. Today she is here, by my side, free from the invisible chains that held her. And I am here, witnessing the miracle of her recovery, knowing that, no matter how dark the night, there is always, always a chance to start over when the dawn arrives. "Mom?" Sarah says, interrupting my thoughts. "Yes?" "Thank you for never giving up on me." I kiss her forehead gently. "That is what mothers do, honey. They never give up." And as the sun begins to set on the horizon, casting golden tones over our small garden and the people we love, I know we are finally home. Not in a physical place, but in that safe space we created for each other, where love is genuine, respect is mutual, and freedom is valued above all else. Some stories do not have happy endings. Ours almost was one of them. But thanks to courage, persistence, and true love, the one that respects, strengthens, and frees, we managed to rewrite our destiny. And that is the message we share with all the Sarahs and Kathys we meet. It is never too late to rewrite your story. It is never too late to escape the shadows and walk toward the light. It is never too late to come home. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left you speechless. Oh, and do not forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos that I do not post here. I will see you there.